Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a theoretical physics paper that, well, it really aims to stretch our understanding of the mind.
Yeah, it definitely does.
It's called Theory of Intelligence, Communication Worlds Within Minds by Ritesh Balayan. And it's proposing this really groundbreaking new framework for consciousness, intelligence, maybe even reality itself.
It's ambitious for sure.
Right. So our mission today is to explore this perspective, what it means for us, and, for the future of AI, too.
hmm
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how these, super abstract ideas actually offer some surprisingly vivid insights into everyday stuff, like memory and emotions.
Absolutely. It tries to connect the big picture theory to things we all experience.
So the author, he's a theoretical physicist, right? And he starts this paper tackling a pretty big question. What does physics not explain?
Which is a bold starting point for a physicist.
Exactly. He argues physics is great for the physical universe, but it kind of hits a wall with consciousness, our dreams, our subjective reality, that stuff.
Yeah, the internal world.
Which leads him right into what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. He frames it as the ultimate hurdle for any final theory, bigger than just a standard theory of everything.
Right, because a theory of everything usually just covers forces and particles, not, the feeling of being you.
So what's really fascinating here is how quickly he steps away from a purely physical explanation.
Yeah, that's the immediate hook. He proposes this, well, pretty radical idea.
Mm-hmm.
Our consciousness, he argues, actually lives in other worlds.
Other worlds, like parallel universes.
Not quite like sci-fi. Think of them more as intricate mental models. Internal simulations, maybe. Imprinted in our neural circuits.
Okay, so models inside our heads.
Exactly. And crucially, they aren't strictly bound by the physical laws we experience out here, but, and this is key, they are constantly being synchronized with the physical world.
Constantly syncing up. But you said they aren't bound by the same laws. How does that work?
Well, the synchronization is often imperfect. Imagine like a slight delay or maybe a distortion in your internal map compared to what's actually outside.
Ah, okay, like a slightly glitchy GPS.
Kind of, yeah. And it's this imperfection, this sort of constant push and pull between the internal model and external reality that he argues gives rise to, well, both the good and the bad.
The good and the bad.
Yeah, beautiful things like creativity, art, problem solving, but also the terrible things like delusions, anxiety, misunderstandings. They stem from that imperfect sync.
Wow. So for you listening, this means your reality isn't just what's out there hitting your senses.
Right. It's deeply shaped by your own experiences, your memories, all feeding into this dynamic, whole new reality where your consciousness can explore, as he puts it.
So how did we even evolve these internal worlds? A paper traces this back evolutionarily.
It does. It starts with simple creatures like jellyfish. Their nervous systems were pretty basic.
Right, just sensor motor stuff. See something, react, find food, move towards it. All about immediate survival.
Exactly. But then, as creatures got more complex, their brains faced a huge challenge. This is where it gets really interesting.
The challenge being fitting more information in.
Basically, yeah.
Hmm.
How do you cram more and more know-how, all the learned stuff, predictions, behaviors, into a limited biological space? You can't just keep adding neurons forever.
Okay, makes sense. There's a physical limit.
So the evolutionary leap, the paper argues, was this. Instead of storing countless specific if this, then that rules for every single possible situation.
Which would take up way too much space.
Exactly. Brains evolved to create these mini models of the world inside your neurons.
Ah, the world simulator again?
Precisely. It's ultimately the most efficient survival strategy. It lets you simulate scenarios, predict outcomes, plan ahead. Much more flexible than just reacting.
And this ties into something neuroscientists talk about, right? Proprioception.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Proprioception, our sense of where our body parts are in space without looking, often called our sixth sense. It's vital.
How does that fit into the...
The paper positions it as a crucial bridge between physical and mental worlds. It embeds your physical self within those mental simulations. Your internal map needs to know where you are on it.
Right, so the simulation is grounded in your body's position.
Exactly. He even describes the brain's models as these complex geometrical constructs or manifolds. Think multi-dimensional maps of everything.
Manifolds.
And proprioception is like the "you are here" marker on those internal maps. It keeps the simulation relevant to your physical state.
That makes sense.
And it gets even more detailed. He talks about virtual proprioception and virtual particles, simulating events near us mentally.
Like what?
Think about getting nervous before opening an important email. Your heart rate might go up before you even read it. That's your mind simulating the potential outcome and your body reacting to the simulation.
Wow. Reacting to a simulation. That's a
Mhm.
powerful idea. And it leads into his critique of current approaches, right, to AI and neuroscience.
Yes. He thinks they might be missing the forest for the trees.
How so? With AI, we often hear about, like, the Chinese room argument.
Right, questioning if AI can truly understand or just mimic the whole strong AI versus weak AI debate.
And let's be real, there's so much corporate hype confusing things, too.
Definitely. But his critique of neuroscience is maybe even sharper. He looks at current practices, which are often mind mapping using MRI or EEG, to see which brain bits light up during tasks and data analysis.
Okay, standard techniques. What's the problem?
He uses this great analogy. Imagine aliens trying to understand human society only by mapping cities and their functions. They see Wall Street controls finance, DC controls politics.
But they'd missed the actual culture, the interactions, the why.
Exactly. He argues mapping brain regions will never lead them to the true nature of human society, or in this case, intelligence. It raises a big question.
Are we just mapping the cities of the brain without understanding the society?
Precisely. Are the intricate details of specific neurons maybe irrelevant details? For a truly fundamental theory of intelligence, he compares it to calculus. Well, calculus originated from geometry, but it became this abstract universal language far beyond just shapes. He thinks we need a similar leap for intelligence, a unifying theory.
Like Maxwell's theory for electromagnetism, unifying electricity, magnetism, light.
Exactly like that. Maxwell used abstract concepts, not just describing wires and magnets. Balayan believes a similar revolution awaits us in the field of AI, unifying all these bits and pieces into one elegant theory.
Okay, so let's get into the core of his theory then, the theory of communicating worlds.
Right. So the idea is our minds model the entire world using those manifolds. We mentioned those complex internal maps.
Defined by coordinates, creating this internal replica of reality.
Yes, a comprehensive replica. But crucially, these mental worlds aren't static. They can actively explore space, time, and logical realities within themselves.
So our consciousness can sort of wander around inside these internal maps, like a sandbox.
That's a good way to put it. And this dynamic is governed by two fundamental conceptual particles, not literal particles, remember?
Conceptual particles, got it. What are they?
First, consciousness particles. These are the explorers, basically. They move around the mental world, and their movement is our conscious experience.
Okay, the explorers. And the second?
Real particles. These are like anchors. They are specialized present coordinates, linking the mental map back to the immediate real physical world, keeping it grounded.
And how do they interact?
Through a simple attraction. The consciousness particles explore, and the real particles are kind of drawn to follow them, updating the connection to reality.
And this relates to memory.
Yes. The real particles form what he calls hyper-objects, which is basically memory. The consciousness particles then explore these memory structures.
Ah, so exploring memory is literally the consciousness particle moving through these hyperobjects.
Exactly. And this beautifully explains plasticity, the brain's ability to learn and change. It's the consciousness particles navigating and reshaping these memory landscapes, refining the maps.
That's quite elegant.
He stresses the elegance. The theory aims to stand on its own, independent of specific machine learning code or the exact wiring of neurons, like Einstein's theory's simple concepts explaining a lot.
And these real particles, they don't just link to sensory input.
No, they can also control motor neurons. They can reverse their action, going from input anchors to output drivers. That's how mental intention translates into physical action.
Okay, so the internal world influences the external. This seems key.
It is. He talks about two main ways the worlds synchronize. First, the obvious one. The real world shaping the mental world. That's learning, training, plasticity. Our models adapt to reality.
Right. Reality updates the map.
But then there's the other direction. The transformation of the real world by incorporating feedback from the mental world.
So the map changing reality. What does that mean for, like, our actions and desires?
It means our conscious world, driven by desire, can actually lead the real world. Your desire to explore a new place, formed in your mental world, drives the physical action of walking there. The mental simulation guides the physical change.
I see. And dreams, how do they fit?
Dreams are explained as a state where the consciousness particle completely decouples from reality. It just roams the mental world freely, exploring those internal maps without being constantly pulled back by the real particles sinking to the outside world.
Total sandbox mode.
Pretty much. And he goes further, talking about more abstract worlds in our
Well, more
minds.
worlds. Like what?
Worlds made of different constituents. Think of a visual world and a separate language world. They're built from the same underlying memory hyperobjects, but represent things differently.
And these abstract worlds can communicate.
Yes, they can communicate and synchronize with each other, much like the internal world syncs with the external one. This allows for complex thought, integrating language, visuals, logic.
Which leads to this idea that memory and logic are fundamentally linked.
Yeah, one and the same, he suggests. Meaning, our ability to reason might just be an emergent property of how consciousness particles explore and connect different memory structures. Thinking is navigating memory.
Okay, wow, that's deep. Which brings us to the really provocative question, maybe the trillion-dollar question. Will AI have empathy? Because this theory seems to flip the script on emotions. It challenges that whole logical Mr. Spock view of intelligence.
Completely. The popular idea is emotions hinder intelligence. This paper argues the exact opposite.
Which is a pretty bold claim. How can emotions be necessary? Doesn't emotional overload cloud our judgment sometimes?
It can, but he frames their core function differently. Emotions, he argues, function as a kind of spontaneous seizure of computations.
A seizure, that sounds bad.
Not necessarily destructive. Think of it as a system-wide reorientation. It's needed to manage the absolutely humongous possibility space you encounter when running mental simulations.
Too many choices, emotions help narrow it down.
Exactly. He claims that without this emotional guidance system, even a hypothetical neural network the size of a solar system would get bogged down and fail at simple tasks, overwhelmed by options. The seizure is an adaptive way to focus computations.
Okay, so emotions as a vital computational steering mechanism.
Right. And this ties into his two levels of synchronization. Level 1 is the basic sync between the physical world and our internal Newtonian simulator, driving learning, desires, basic interaction.
Our core operating system syncing with reality.
Kind of. Level 2 is more complex. It's the synchronization of two virtual worlds, like your internal language model interacting and syncing with your internal visual map.
Ah, like when we tell a story using words to describe images in our head.
Precisely. That requires syncing different internal abstract worlds. And it's this higher-level synchronization, he implies, that underpins complex human behaviors and potentially empathy.
So the theory suggests AI could have empathy.
Because these emotional simulators, these computational governors, are presented as an integral functional part of higher intelligence, not just some messy human add-on.
This is a lot to take in conceptually. Does the paper offer any way to sort of visualize how this might actually be realized, even simplified?
It does offer a conceptual realization. It's meant more to illustrate the principle than be a literal blueprint,
Okay, a simplified picture.
He starts with a simple neuron model, like a 3-synapse or gate, and imagines a network. Within this network, persistent patterns of electrical activity, current loops, could represent instances of memory.
Okay, loops of current as memories.
Now imagine mapping this activity to a higher abstract space. In that space, the active current loops become the consciousness particles, the explorers.
The active thought becomes the explorer particle.
Right. And the underlying potential for those loops, their dormant state, becomes the real particles, the anchors to reality, attracting the consciousness particles.
Potential loops are the anchors. Wow.
And training, or learning, in this view, is the process where the trails of these real particles follow the paths taken by the consciousness particles, etching those paths into the memory landscape, forming conscious maps that evolve into stable threads of understanding.
That's a very different way to think about learning. Can we connect this to some concrete examples? How would this theory explain, say, retrieving a memory?
Okay, memory retrieval. Imagine you see a familiar person. That sensory input activates a real particle linked to that visual cue. This real particle then pulls a consciousness particle onto the associated conscious map or memory thread. The consciousness particle travels along that map, activating associated memories, their name, shared experiences, etc. That's the retrieval process.
The anchor pulls the explorer onto the right memory path. Makes sense. What about something complex like catching a ball?
Right, catching a ball. This is a great example of the mental leading the physical. Your consciousness particles simulate the ball's trajectory in your internal world model before the ball even gets close. They catch the ball mentally first.
Simulating the catch.
Yes. This simulation predicts where the ball will be and calculates the precise muscle commands needed. The real particles then act as the bridge, translating that simulation into motor output, guiding your hand to the right place at the right time, even adjusting for spin or wind based on the internal model.
The simulation drives the action. That's cool. What about something like an emotional outburst? You mentioned emotions as seizures.
Yes, the theory offers a perspective on that too. Think of it as an evolutionary safety mechanism. If something happens, maybe the traumatic event, a black swan event that causes consciousness particles to form entirely new, potentially harmful or destabilizing mental maps.
Like dwelling on something destructive.
Exactly. An emotional outburst, in this view, is a spontaneous network seizure designed to halt that process. It disrupts the exploration of those dangerous maps, forces a reset, and helps the system stabilize. It's a drastic but sometimes necessary intervention.
A system-wide interrupt to prevent catastrophic mental states. That's a wild thought. And communication, how does that fit?
Effective communication, the theory suggests, relies on achieving synchronization between different minds' conscious maps. When we understand each other, it's because our internal consciousness particles are navigating similar conceptual maps. Our mental worlds align.
So understanding is map synchronization.
Pretty much. And this opens the door, theoretically, to computers which start synchronizing with our conscious maps even without the same neuronal biology. An AI that doesn't just process language, but actually aligns its internal world model with yours.
True understanding, potentially. Wow, this whole deep dive has been incredible. We've gone from jellyfish nervous systems to, well, the possibility of empathetic AI, all through the lens of this one theory. It really reframes consciousness, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah.
Consider just how much of your own moment-to-moment reality isn't just raw data from the outside world, but is actively shaped by these internal communicating worlds within your mind.
Our internal simulators.
Right. How much is that constant, imperfect synchronization driving what you learn, what you desire, even your deepest emotions? It really makes you wonder about the true landscape of consciousness, hidden inside our own heads, and what we might discover there next.
A fascinating place to leave it. Definitely keep exploring that dance between your inner and outer worlds.